You're listening to Errol Parker and Clancy Overall, editors of the Betoota Advocate, on Desert Rock FM.
Well, welcome back to the Betoota Advocate radio show, live from quarantine. In fact, we're so quarantined here in the Channel Country that Errol Parker couldn't make it in today. He's got visitors from overseas. His old man's come back from Hong Kong. Fans of the show would know Errol's old man was a Namibian arms dealer who went missing for quite a while after apartheid, and he's shown back up with his hat in his hand. So Errol's got to deal with that, but he's also got to isolate now because we don't know what the situation's like in South Africa, Namibia at the moment. So that's where he is. It's just me this week, Clancy Overall, editor of the Betoota Advocate, and joining us today for our special, our Project Apollo special, one of the great halfbacks of the modern era. He's played Origin, he played for the Roosters, played for Penrith, and he played for St George Illawarra Dragons. Also a little stint in the Super League there. The Northern Broncos, London Broncos. Jamie Soward, thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks, Clancy. I'm pretty excited to be on, actually. I mean, the footy's been great getting it back, but sounds like Errol might be in a little bit of Barney rubble over there in South Africa.
Yeah, no. He's isolating down in his big house down in Betoota Grove, but he's got to play it safe, and we're glad he is. Everyone's still taking it seriously in Queensland. Yeah, the borders are, I believe, opening up in the next couple of days, but we're behind the eight ball, and for good reason, because, you know, as you would know, Jamie, New South Wales are just dirty people, and they, I mean, as a Canberra boy, you know what I'm saying, not as a Blues player.
Canberra's been described as the arsehole of Australia. So, yeah, Queensland up there, they just got two heads, but down here we're nice and normal in New South Wales.
Mate, how are you liking the quality of football post-isolation lockdown? Yeah,
I mean, without getting too in-depth and technical, I think we're excited to have the product back and we're excited to have the footy back, but there's some teams that have come out of the break a lot better than other teams. There were some really average performances by some teams that needed to win to get their year started. So I think the rule changes. Peter V'landys is an absolute god. Yeah. We'd never had Todd Greenberg as a poster or on shirts and stuff. So Peter V'landys has done amazing. It's great to have the footy back. I think it's just going to be – it's sort of puzzling while we stop playing, really. I think we should have just tried to keep playing and we would have been halfway through or nearly through the comp now.
Not many rugby league players have been to Aspen in the last 6 months anyway, so not really high risk, unless they've been mucking around in Bali, which they seem to do in the off-season. But you tell us a little bit about that. From what you just said there about V'landys, it is bizarre to have a sports administrator that has become a cult icon that people trust and love and worship. Is that the first time you've ever seen anything like this?
In rugby league, a lot of the time the administrators are, we only hear about them and how much they earn and, that kind of stuff from an outsider point of view. But having worked at the NRL, what Peter's been able to do is fantastic. He's really taken the reins, and I think he led the horse racing industry through that equine situation a couple of years ago. So I just think it's nice to have a strong leader that knows what he wants and is not afraid of putting it out there and going after it. And that's why we've been able to get our game back on the field.
It's great to have someone who isn't an ex-player in the top job. Is that what you'd say?
I'm still getting paid by the NRL, but look, it's like I said, I'm happy to have the game back. There's a lot of people. Look, it takes a lot to get everything going. You talk about whatever we're doing, it takes a lot to get it going. And I think Peter came in with a strong arm and ruled with an iron fist. So that's been everyone's stepped in the line, and that's why we've been able to get the game on.
Now, your last season, I guess, was 2016. Three years out now. What have you been doing with yourself day to day? Because you've been keeping busy.
Yeah, so I retired at the end of 2016 and, pretty much sat around on my ass for a couple of months. And I don't have the financial backing of some of those other guys that have the opportunity to sit down and enjoy it. But I actually started selling shitters at Harvey Norman and taps and all that. I had no idea what I was doing, but I just enjoyed the convo and then was lucky enough to get into the media. And since then, I've been working on Channel 9, working with NRL.com, New South Wales Rugby League. It's been great because I get to watch the footy and pretty much get paid for it now, whereas I used to watch the footy all the time and not get paid for it as much. But it's funny, the media world, because, everyone's doing their own thing. Everyone's doing podcasts and stuff like that. So it's kind of hard to stay relevant, as I'm sure, you guys are cream of the crop. You're up there, the big time, but
we had to diversify.
Else
We had to get out of the print newspaper game, that's for sure.
That was the best. I just sit there and read all the memes. I just laugh all the time. I mean, it's in a time where there's some serious stuff going on in the world. I think too often we lose sight of the fact that we can be nice people and we can have a laugh and enjoy things. And footy's been a massive part of that. Since I retired, so I've been able to enjoy both sides of it.
Now you've always, I guess it's a rare talent. You've had the ability to call people out. A lot of players would shut up. Especially when someone's taking the piss or someone's just, when players do get kind of piled on a bit, and you were always able to call that out. Would you ever envision yourself as one of those players that the media picked on?
Yes. I actually went through early on in my career, I wanted to be in the media, and at the Dragons, I've probably felt like I'd earned the respect before it was given to me. So I was a bit prickly with the media and stuff like that. And as I got older, you learn how to answer things better and, not muck around and try and beat around the bush. So I've always called it straight down the line. It's never a personal attack on anyone.
Yeah.
I remember talking to a reporter, Zach Bailey, when he came out late and asked if we were going to win the wooden spoon, and I just brushed him because he turned up late. So, in the media in Australia, we don't like wankers. We don't like people that are different to everyone else. Everyone has to be the guy that you have to have a beer with. Yeah. And I didn't care that I wasn't that guy, because I've got enough friends. So I just called it how I saw it. And if people didn't like it, they didn't like it. But it also made me easier to sleep at night that I'd, been true to myself, I guess, the old Paulini line or Marsha Hines line off X Factor or whatever she was on, just be true to yourself. But if someone pissed me off, I just called them out, and it wasn't going to fight them or anything, but I just felt like either you don't know me or you don't understand me, and we're not friends, so you don't have the right to be able to do that. And Bo Ryan was one of those guys. He's in the media and earlier than I was, and he called me out, and I don't know Bo. I've met him a couple of times, but I haven't sat down and talked to him, and he doesn't know anything about me. So I just felt like, if I called it out and people didn't like it, then bad luck. But I'm happy not being the guy that everyone wants to have a beer with.
Yeah. Well, you certainly had the last laugh with Bo Ryan anyway when you posted a photo of you holding a NRL Premiership trophy.
Yeah, it was nice. It was nice.
Now, what have you got to say? Speaking of Premiership winners not getting the respect they deserve, it seems like, particularly in nowadays with the online and the clickbait, how good do you have to be to shut people up? Like, Latrell Mitchell's an interesting insight into this. Is that doing your head in or what? Like, he's won 2 premierships and now he's a sook or a divisive or unfit. I mean, he could be unfit. He's still won 2 premierships.
Clancy, you're exactly right. Yeah. And just before I answer that question, I think the media need the players need the media. And sometimes we forget that, if we don't cover the game, the players don't get the money. And if the players don't give us access, we don't get paid. So I hope that we realised in COVID-19 that we actually all need each other a little bit more. And instead of chasing all the dirt and building up Latrell, yes, he's probably not as fit as what he should be to play fullback. But if I was 22, had 2 kids, earning $1 million a year and had 2 premierships, played for Australia and played State of Origin, it's not a bad career at 22 or 23. So,
mate, that's a lifetime. It's a lifetime of public speaking right there.
Well, that's exactly right. But again, it's people in Australia don't like anything that's different. Yeah. They don't like anyone that talks themselves up. In America, Latrell Mitchell would be a hero no matter where he went. Yeah. And he'd be probably criticised because of his fitness and maybe body shape. But other than that, what a career at 22, 23. Can't we just sit back and marvel at it and judge him purely on his rugby league? I watched him the other night on Friday night, and I thought that was one of his best games this year. And he's only played 2 other games, but he was involved. But his fitness just died out. Once he gets his fitness right, he has all the makings of being a good fullback. But we in the media tend to overanalyze and pick everything apart right to the nth degree, and that's not good for anyone, especially with Latrell. As you mentioned, I just still can't believe. I said to my parents the other night, this kid's won two premierships before 22, and can't we just enjoy what is Latrell Mitchell?
Yeah, you don't need to keep everyone happy. You never needed to keep everyone happy because you had all your own mates. What was that like? I mean, you're a Canberra boy. What was it like heading back there? After you had a few NRL matches under your belt or a few seasons under your belt. Did that always keep you grounded, the hometown crowd?
Yes and no. I mean, I grew up half my life in Wagga, so
Yeah, right.
I felt like I surrounded myself with a good bunch of mates that didn't have anything to do with footy, and I had my mates at work and footy. So being grounded for me was always by older guys. They'd say if I did something wrong or I came out and I acted like a pork chop, I was grounded by those guys, and they set the tone for. And I'm not saying I didn't make any mistakes, but they really set the tone for who I was going to be as a person. And while I was able to still be a little bit of a pest before social media started, which was all the fun, but Northie's got a fair old bash when I was playing for the Dragons back in 07, 08, but you can't do that anymore. So I think being grounded's definitely the support people that you have and find that balance. And if you're going to make a mistake, you make a mistake, but having that group around me has always helped me.
Yeah, we interviewed Willie and Rennie on the same podcast. It was quite an excitable podcast we did. Anyone who was listening might remember that Willie decided to bring an 8-pack of Fairy Floss flavoured G&Ts, and he finished the entire thing and really let us know what he was thinking about the game. But they were saying there's a siege mentality often in rugby league, and that was most definitely the case in like the 2004 kind of Dogs of War. It was play hard. And then, work hard, play hard. But play hard was also emphasised. Did you ever see that playing?
Yeah, definitely. My first interaction with Willie Mason was at an Eastern Suburbs nightclub, and I think I was 20 at the time, and I'd gone out. Back then, I was like 2004. You could go out with $50 and probably still come home with some change, you know. Yeah. So I was around a few of the first graders. I think Craig Wing was there, and he introduced me to Mace. He said, "This is Willie Mason," and Mace just looked over and said, "Vodka orange." He didn't even say hello. So me being the little bitch that I was, that I was drinking with Willie Mason and Craig Wing, I go up to the bar and spent me $8 there, and I didn't buy myself a drink because I was too scared I was going to have to get him another one. The siege mentality, it's I think it's died out a lot now. There's a lot of young guys that care about their money and their profile and probably other things other than going out and having a beer with the boys.
The TikToks.
There's less chance to do it now.
Yeah, you glad you didn't have to go through the TikTok era?
Yes. It's just like we grew up, Rennie and Mace, they would have grown up pretty similar ages, that you had a beer after every game. You had a beer after every game. You sat in the sheds and you won together and you lost together, and you looked forward to going away because you knew that you were going to be in that team environment and enjoy the company of each other. Whereas now they can't do it anymore because people have got phones, and you can't just be a dickhead down at the pub and have too many beers, without someone saying, "Oh, Sao had too many beers. All right, mate, you better go home." Now it's like, "Oh, he was pissed. He was carrying on like an idiot, blah, blah, blah." So I think that's changed. But back then, before social media, remember at the Roosters, Ricky Stewart, we'd lost, and he said, we lost to the Tigers actually by about 40 points. And the next day he told us to bring our boxing gloves in. We're going to bash the shit out of each other. And I thought, oh, geez, like Sticky hates me already, but he's going to hate me even more when he sees that I can't fight. We're doing the video and we're just about to finish. And he says, "Righto, we're not going down to Cronulla to bash the shit out of each other. We're going to go to the pub. No one's allowed to leave till 12 o'clock. And we stayed there and drunk in a circle till 12 o'clock and told each other how much we loved each other. And they're some of the best memories, but I don't think they can do that anymore.
No. I'm sure Ricky'd want to try, though.
He probably does. But, that's the sort of siege mentality of the teammates and stuff that we're the team environment.
Now, you said before, like Latrell over in the States would be an icon. I mean, there's a great expression that in America, people look up at someone living on a big house on the hill and say, "I want to be like that guy." And in Australia, we look up at someone up on the hill and say, "I'm going to get him. I'm going to get that bloke." Or I'm going to bring him back down off the hill.
That's totally right. That's totally right. It's tall poppy syndrome. We all have to be the nice guy. We can't – if someone's successful, that's why John Bateman's a perfect example, Clancy, last week about – how much money he's worth. Well, you're worth as much as someone's willing to pay you.
Yeah.
If someone comes in and says, "We want to pay you $1 million a year," oh, he shouldn't leave Canberra, he should be loyal. Okay, well, if you give me 200,000 worth of loyal, all right, then I'll stay. But, you get as much as you can. That's why there's good contracts and bad contracts, and clubs win sometimes because the player outplays that, and sometimes the player wins. But how can we ever count another person's money, especially in today's environment?
Yeah.
And how can we judge their life? We don't know what's going on when Latrell leaves the footy field. We don't know what he's growing up's like. We can only see and read what we've got. But sometimes I think it's unfair. And I'm in the media. Sometimes it's unfair that we judge those people so harshly.
Yeah. Did you have to make those executive decisions? Like, well, I'm being offered to go here, but I reckon if I stay one more year here, we might take it with your premiership at St. George. Had you calculated that in your signing? Were there offers I
got sacked from every club I was at.
Yeah, right.
Finished the contract.
Yeah, right.
Well, not sacked, but I just moved on. When I left the Roosters, actually, I went to St. George and Wayne rang me up in the middle of 2008 and just said, I want you to be my 5'8", and I pretty much agreed and signed a couple of weeks later for an extension. So it depends how much money's on the line. If you're Latrell Mitchell, it's taking $200,000 less to stay at the Roosters probably doesn't make sense when you've got a young family and you've won 2 premierships. Yeah. If you're chasing a premiership and there's only 50,000 in it, you may look at trying to stay around and build something special because at the end of the day, people in the media want to hear about successful people from their playing career. And I was lucky enough to win a premiership with the Dragons. And I think that gives me some sort of cachet when I talk footy that people can understand and think, well, at least he's won a premiership. If you haven't played for Australia and New South Wales, I think it'd be a little bit harder coming out and proving your point. So most of the guys that are in the media have been successful, either won or played decorated careers for New South Wales or Australia.
Let's not forget Paul Kent's one match for Parramatta in 1993. Now, you also get currency? Do you also get currency playing under Wayne Bennett?
Yeah, definitely. That's everyone's like, what was Wayne like? And Wayne I lost my father the morning after my debut. So, I was lucky enough to have a good stepfather role model who looked after me and stuff. But Wayne was like my dad at work pretty much. He knew what buttons to push. He knew when to kick me in the ass and he knew when to give me a cuddle. And that's why his players love him. That's why he has been successful. He's won 7 premierships. He's been in grand finals, semi-finals, pretty regularly. So he gets the respect of the players. They trust him, and that's why it makes him so great. He's tactically, he's smart and everything that comes with it. But for a coach to sit up the back of the bus and listen to all the stories from the single guys and all that kind of stuff and ask questions, by the way, it's pretty cool.
Is that a particular skill set? Because the game's changed a lot since he started winning premierships at the Broncos. He would have seen the rise of Polynesian talent. He would have experienced a lot of different cultures, and he still managed to maintain a healthy relationship with everyone that played under him. Do you feel like that's a skill that some coaches actually take for granted? Yeah,
it's sometimes people ask me, would you ever be a coach? How do you go up to a kid that's 20 or 22 with 2 kids? I couldn't imagine myself with 2 kids at 22 and all that kind of stuff that goes on. And Wayne just gets all that stuff. He knows that while the team goal is all the same, individuals get treated differently and suited to their behaviour. So I think that him understanding that and that man management and down to a T being able to, I guess, customise that to every player is why he's been successful.
His phone must be busy. He'd have, hundreds of blokes who just want to keep in touch.
Yeah, I think Wendell used to call him a couple of times, and in the off season if we'd be out having a beer, so that was always fun. But the thing with Wayne is, I don't call him very often, but the times that I've seen him, he's straight in, family. Yeah. It's not always about footy, and I think some coaches out there that are all footy, and you've got to be tough, and you wouldn't have been able to play 30 years ago, and you've got to bash the shit out of this guy. And then there's other guys that are like, we understand that that's not your go, so we'll just get the best out of you here, and then hopefully, you do your part for the team, and the rest follow.
Have you? We've seen recently, in recent years, we actually, now the media is so close and got such a close eye on it, we actually do get a closer look at blow-ups between players and coaches, which would have once upon a time just been like hearsay in the pubs. People would be like, oh, you heard he doesn't get along with so-and-so. But, with Robbie Farah and those kind of scenarios where we actually know, where he's actively saying, it's almost a bit like The Last Dance, the way those boys are talking about Jerry Krause. You see that with a few examples in the NRL. Have you ever seen a scenario where it's toxic, where it's not going to work from here?
Yeah, well, I had Steve Price, obviously. Yeah. yeah, that relationship was great when Pricey was an assistant coach. And then I think circumstances changed in 2012 and 13 where, yeah, he's trying to get the best out of what's left of this team and get back to where Wayne took us. And I liked the way that Wayne did things and couldn't understand why we were trying to change things when we were successful the 3 years before. I think that players, the same with Anthony Griffin, really, like that relationship soured really quickly because I was going through a divorce. I was going through some mental stuff off field that wasn't giving my best on field, and that was at the back end. And then Ivan had been sacked, and I really liked Ivan. So different philosophies at different stages throughout your career can certainly butt heads. But now I work with Anthony Griffin, and we see the game exactly the same. We probably just didn't realise it at the same time that we understood each other. So I think coaches and players, a lot more now. Like you said, it would be hearsay, but most guys sort it out pretty quickly. I don't think there's too many dramas as like the Last Dance where it's so blatant that Jerry Krause wasn't even he was a GM, so he was trying to break the team apart from within and create that divide. But what people don't realise is it's actually the dressing room. If you run the dressing room, that's fine. You don't even have to see the board members. And Jordan ran that. So he was able to get the players on side. So if you're a minimum wage guy and Jordan comes in and says, Jerry Krause, what a wanker, he's trying to do this, I read this, blah, blah, blah. Instantly the minimum wage guy goes, well, I'm on minimum wage, but I've got to hang out with Jordan the whole time. Yeah. I've got to not be on his side, but I'm trying to just stay in the team. And I know that Jordan's going to keep me in the team because if he likes me. So sometimes that's sort of the key guys in the dressing room. If they hold the dressing room, they can have all the power.
Were you, I mean, you're an NBA nut. You're a basketball nut. You have a podcast about it. Were you across a lot of the stuff that came up in the Last Dance, or were you was that eye-opening for you as well? The
best thing about the Last Dance was we can see what LeBron James is doing now. We've been a part of his journey since he came in.
Social media.
For the people that are older, they didn't get the access to Michael Jordan like we do to LeBron James. So it was nice to see what it took inside Jordan's head to be able to create the storyline so that he could be successful to himself, because that whole journey was amazing when you look back. And I was only young. I think I was about 12 or 13. But his journey of what it took, just him mentally, what it took for him to get someone offside and just go after him like that, that's what we wanted to hear. I didn't care about the other players, to be honest. I didn't want to hear from anyone else. I just wanted to hear from Jordan and Phil Jackson about what it took, their relationship, why Jordan was so good, what happened. This guy was worldwide without the internet. That's how big he was. And sometimes I think the players in Australia who watched it especially in the NRL clans, have realised that Jordan had 82 games a year, couldn't go anywhere without media, had to answer questions every day and still got the job done and still answered them politely and still did all that.
Put on a suit.
Whereas sometimes our media managers and NRL, we're like, no, can't have this guy, can't do this, can't do that. Jordan's doing it all. He was carrying the game by himself at that stage.
The burnout for the hiatus between his, three-peats was almost inevitable, right? The way they work those guys. I mean, he doesn't get a moment to himself until 1 a.m, surely. After a match, and then all the media, then the crowds to the bus, on the bus, to the hotel where people are waiting for him, cheering for him. Then he gets to a hotel room at 1 a.m, probably sleeps, 6 hours, and they're on a flight to go play somewhere else. You can see how that people burn out under that.
NRL players burn out. NRL players at the end of a long year want to get away, and we don't have nowhere near the scrutiny of what Michael Jordan went through. They're always on the run. That's why a lot of their guys, their lifestyle, if you follow a guy like James Harden who's in strip clubs the night before he plays and all that kind of stuff, they look for anywhere to try and get away where they just can't be bothered, and they can go and try and do that. And Jordan, the image of him sitting in his room thinking this is the only place I can be was actually quite sad. It was actually quite sad that he couldn't go out. Yeah, it was. It was. And everyone says, but he's earning millions of dollars and he's this and that. It's like, yes, that's great. It is honestly great. And I'm not comparing myself to him in any way, but sometimes if you've played a bad game or, maybe you're going well and you go down and you just feel like people are talking to you, or like it just gets a little bit, I guess, overwhelming at times, especially if you're playing bad and you're out having a beer, because people will say, well, you're having a beer, you haven't deserved that beer. And you're like,
That's
I'm just
one
here
thing
with
the
my family.
NRL have to put up with, where you kind of are a level of fame in rugby league where you can get away with going to the pub. The players probably aren't paid enough to stay home from the pub. You know what I mean? When you look at the NBA or the baseball in America, you're not rolling the dice on a bender. You know, when you're getting paid $100 million a year, you stay the hell home. But you know, when you start talking 200 grand for a young buck playing at the Knights, they might go down for a little bit of a look around in the main street of town. You know, a bit of a piss up. And then,
well, they might go down and have a look at the girls as well. They want to, they get one girl offside, and then all of a sudden it's made news because we just crave that drama and excitement and days of our life shit. Over there in America, they win the title and they have a day together or maybe have a bit. Then they just disperse. There's no team siege mentality like you're talking about with Rennie and Willie.
There's no week-long Mad Monday, Tuesday, Thursday. That was
There's no dress-ups.
They don't even like the champagne they're spraying on each other. They're just like, get me out of here. I want to go home and have a nap.
That's exactly right.
Was that an issue you find in the NRL, Australian culture particularly, where someone just feels like they have the authority to tell you how you've been playing in the TAB of a pub in, Townsville or, wherever the hell you are?
Yeah, look, I love Twitter. Yeah. I think Twitter's the best social media platform because people can say anything at any time, anywhere in the world, and you can have a conversation. But, old mate that's come up to you and, mate, what happened last week? And you just want to turn around and say, mate, can you beat it? I'm just trying to have a bit of a punt and a beer and relax. And he's, I don't think they should have this guy on the side and this and that. And, the rude part of me wants to say, mate, you've never played before. Shut up, leave me alone. Yeah. Then you've got to think about the club. He makes a complaint to the club. Yeah. Oh, he was rude to me, but he doesn't tell how he was giving me playing advice and all that kind of stuff. So I enjoy going to a game and listening to people yell out, I can't believe we picked this guy. And, it is what it is. It's Australian sport. It's world sport, really. But I think in America, Clance, that they're treated more like heroes, and that in Australia we're expected to be role models.
Yeah, and Australians also, for sure, the role model thing is a horrible complex Australians have with their sports stars. I don't know, more so than anywhere else in the world, Australians feel entitled to an opinion on something they don't know much about. So, for a guy who's never played a match to walk up and tell you where you need to be standing, maybe some plays you guys could put together or something like that. I mean, it's bad enough when you hear the stories of Russell Crowe.
You have a 5-year-old telling you're a wanker and that you can't kick. And you're like, mate, you're 5. I'd like to see you do this, So I'm a massive basketball nut, as you said, and I'm right into it and passionate, but I'd never, ever, I got a photo with Marcus Smart, who plays for the Celtics now, and I would never walk past him and yell out, yo, Smart, Marcus. Well, I'd just be that respectful of it because, that's his time, and I was lucky enough to get a photo, but I wouldn't be saying, mate, why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do that? Because that's his craft. That's what he's good at. So
back to the machine, the psycho that was Jordan. Who do you think that you've played alongside that had a little bit of that in them where they were tormented by their own competitiveness?
Probably I could sort of consider myself an ultimate competitor where I just have to try and be, and that probably was to my detriment at the back end of the years because I couldn't do the things that I used to do and I probably just took it out on the wrong people. But Brett Finch was one of those guys that had a lot of pressure, whose ultimate competitiveness drove him. He knew that everything was going to be on him come Monday, the headlines, everything. And sometimes that was to his detriment as well. Ricky Stewart, I think guys that are in the important positions usually are the best competitors because they understand the ramifications if you do lose or play bad or like that. But the best guy I've seen is Jonathan Thurston in terms of competitiveness. Yeah, right. Played with him in the Indigenous All-Stars.
I was going to say, that would have been your only matchup there. He's
it was funny because in 2009 it was the first camp with the Indigenous All-Stars and I got roomed with JT. Wayne had organised for me to get in the room with JT because he knew Neil Henry. And I was so excited, but I was pretty nervous because the first night's a piss up. So we go in, we get into camp and we get on the piss. And I woke up about 3 a.m. and Jono was standing over me and said, "Oi, bruh, what are you doing?" And I sort of looked over and I said, "I'm sleeping." And he goes, you're nude face down on my bed. I need you to get up. So my first impression of JT was my hairy ass. How
horrifying.
He came in, I was that embarrassed. I was horrified. He was horrified, but his competitiveness was something that I admired, and the times that I played against him he was always in the frame, whether it be scoring a try or saving a try. He was always there.
You were there for the 2000 and Indigenous All-Stars. You were there for the first one.
Yeah. I roomed with him. I was lucky enough to get the try at the end there in that first game.
Was that the one Wendell played?
Yeah. He did the didge. Yeah, it was last minute too, because we weren't sure what Big Dell was going to do because it was his last game. So he could have done a number of things. He could have done the Robbie Fowler, the old along the white line there. But he was great, Dell. That set the tone, and it's the best week because you get to hear. Usually we play against these guys and then we preview on to the next, but those weeks you get to hear about some of our best ever players and their stories and stuff like that. And we all felt like we had something in common when we went into those camps.
Mm. So where's your family from? Down Riverina way?
No, Mum was in Canberra and Dad was born in Condobolin. So we moved into Wagga when I was 10 and pretty much just stayed there and then went back to Canberra. So everyone thinks I'm from Wagga, but I tell them I'd rather be from Wagga. No, I'm joking.
Bam Bam's family all from Condo.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I went there once and it was not a good place, Condobolin. So
it's they got Shannon Knoll. Anyway. The opposite, I guess, of the JT character is the guy that kind of, I guess, the Rodman, right, who just stumbled through life and found this thing they were good at. The Hello Sport Boys interviewed Chock Watmo about his life and times, and there was not one mention of him really, really wanting to make it, like really wanting to make a rep side or really. He basically said, I kept playing and people just kept putting me in teams. Have you seen much of that?
Probably, you know what? I was talking about it the other day. It's funny you bring it up. I think Jamal Idris was sort of like that. He was so talented at athletics, and he pretty much could do anything. And he's really smart actually. And some guys, I absolutely love rugby league. I had to work really hard, and I didn't have the body shape, whereas Jamal was big and strong, and could do anything. So I felt like. Probably he played for Australia, I think, and played State of Origin, but he could have been a guy that just was happy doing whatever. But and that's probably why he retired early, because he wasn't really in love with the game and needed that sort of let loose mentality that Rodman had. So I loved playing with Gemma. He's a fantastic guy, and even though he had his troubles, I enjoyed the banter and everything that he had, and the point of difference he brought to the dressing room was always interesting.
I saw a good one from him the other day during all the panic buying. he was in the shops on Instagram, and he was going through the shelves, and he goes, "These fellas don't even know," and he was grabbing all the Devon off the shelf. He goes, "Yes, this is the true non-perishable."
Devon sandwiches with tomato sauce. Find me an Indigenous person or a brother that doesn't like that and doesn't smash a loaf, and it'd be a very, very rare. It'd be like catching a rare Pokemon, I reckon.
Yeah. He actually, but he finished his career and then went travelling Europe. Like, that says it all, really. Just kind of backpacking.
He just put on a backpack, and I think he got robbed in Vietnam or something like that.
They got locked up there.
Jammer was always interesting.
So you did a stint at the London Broncos in the Super League between St George and Penrith. And then you went back there again.
Yep.
So what
first time I loved it.
Yeah.
First time I loved it. I'd signed a 4-year deal with Penrith, but they were under the belief that if I came across and didn't perform straight away, because they'd won 6 in a row, if I went straight across and lost, the next 4 years were going to be hard for me to get the fans and all that kind of back. So, but the second time, I'd been dropped from first grade at Penrith and just didn't want to play the year in reserve grade. Felt like I could just go over to England, and I was going to have a couple of years over there, but I got over there and didn't enjoy it. Missed Australia and wanted to get into the media. So I just sacrificed that probably last year and a half to be able to come back and try and work in the media. But London's a really boring place for an Australian.
Yeah, it's a big Melbourne.
footy.
Big Melbourne. That's
what
it is.
Yeah, well, the sun comes out and they're mad over there. They're mad. The sun comes out and their shirts are straight off, and I'm like, this is every day in Australia. This is beautiful.
How long did you live there at a time, though? It'd be, 6 months at a time, or?
Both times were 3 months.
Right.
Both times were 3 months. So I had the hottest summer in 2013, the hottest summer in 10 years. And when I went back 3 years later, they had the hottest summer again. So it was gold for me. But yeah, I didn't enjoy the second time around.
Footy's back on. You know, you're working in the media and you've got a good eye on things, and I guess you're looking a lot closer than most blokes in the pub. Who were your tips this year? Do you reckon the milk have got it in them?
Yes.
Yep.
Before the season started, I had Parramatta, Canberra, Roosters, Storm, and Manly as the 5 teams that I thought could win it, and probably narrowed down to Canberra and Parramatta. Roosters, showed on the weekend that they're a fantastic side. They're going to really adapt to these rules a lot quicker. But Canberra Raiders have been the most impressive team on the weekend because they have a side now that has a halfback who's a step up from what Aiden Caesar was, and they've got the final piece to their puzzle. They won that game in Melbourne without John Bateman. So they've got a real chip on their shoulder from last year. They felt like they probably should have been premiers last year, I think. They were the better side for a long time in that grand final, but couldn't get it done. Parramatta's the interesting one for me, Clance, because you look at, I think their drought's 84 or 86 the last time they won. So they've got a 34-year drought, and they've never been this hyped up into a preseason, into a complete team. There's no weaknesses there. So they're the team to watch. But I actually like Manly. I think Manly with your man DCE, controlling, and he's the best half in the game. And when he's on, Tom Trbojevic is usually on. If they can stay injury-free, I think Manly could be the dark horse that could win it all.
The blonde horse.
The blonde horse. And the Hello Sport boys they'll be either cursing me because I've jinxed them, or they'll be loving it because I've given them the special love.
They'll take it. They'll take any mention of Manly anywhere in the media. So, mate, thanks for having a chat with us today. All the best in isolation. Where are you living? You're in Sydney? Yeah,
over in Heathcote. Just paddling water until the house market drops down to pretty much zero, where I can just walk in and take a house. And,
good. Move back to Bondi.
I don't think so. This clearly, you asked me what I've been doing in retirement, mate. I've been eating and drinking. That's about it, and calling the footy. So this body isn't built for water. It's a land mammal, and I'll be staying on land. I won't be near the water.
Oh, beauty. Thanks for joining us, mate, and we'll see you around. Maybe we'll have a beer when the walls come down.
Too easy. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate your time.
Right.